Welcome back, everyone, to our computer science module 7. We'll pick up from there, network fundamentals. So let's jump right into the first question of study. You are tasked with configuring a wireless SOHO router for a customer. Remember, SOHO is small office or home office. Which of the following settings will be the most secure with the least effort and cost to the customer? So the first thing to remember is that the AES is more secure than TKIP. All right, so you can eliminate the first two possible answers: WPA-PSK TKIP, WPA2.PSK TKIP. All right, because AES is better. Now the enterprise one. That's a more expensive. That's not going to be cost effective, right? Because you're going to pay enterprise prices that can cover a whole enterprise as opposed to just one customer. So the correct answer would be WPA2-PSK AES. And then here on page 930, you see where it says WPA2 Wi-Fi Protected Access 2 typically uses AES, which is Advanced Encryption Standard for encryption, which provides faster and more secure encryption than TKIP. All wireless devices sold today support the WPA2 standard. All right, so your answer is WPA2-PSK and AES for Advanced Encryption Standards. All right, so on to number 2. A technician is configuring a new SOHO multifunction wireless router at a customer's location to provide network access to several wireless devices. The technician is required to protect the customer's private network from unauthorized access while performing the initial router setup as well as during normal operation after the configuration is completed. Which of the following is the best step for the technician to take in securing the router to meet this requirement? All right, so the first answer, configure MAC filtering on the router and allow access to only the technician computer, doesn't really make sense. MAC filtering is not going to do anything but allow that one computer to access the router. So enable DHCP on the router and configure the IP address reservations for the wireless client. Once again, that's not going to help at all. Then disable the router's radio in the wireless network settings. You can stop the broadcast, but that's not going to secure it as much as. The correct answer is change the router's default password or the default administrative password. Changing the router password is especially important if the router is a wireless router. Unless you have disabled or secured the wireless access point, anyone within its range, even outside your building, can use your wireless network. If they guess the default password to the router, they can change the password to hijack your router. Also, your wireless network could be used for criminal activity. So that's from page 920. So when they say your default password, every router, every brand has a set password, whether it's admin or password or 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. If they know the brand, whether it's Linksys, Cisco, whatever, the default password is going to be the same across that whole brand. So 4 or 5 guesses, any network person can pretty much guess a default password. So definitely change that. All right, moving on to number 3. Which of the following wireless network protocols use LTE technology with a maximum speed of up to 1 gigabits per second? So when you see these 5th generation, 4th generation, 3rd generation, that just means that that's short for 3G, 4G, 5G. All right. So 5G is a lot faster. It's the current technology, so that wouldn't be the correct answer. If you remember, before 5G came out, if you had your cell phone on you, you look up in the top right-hand corner, you might see a LTE on there. That's 4th G. That's the correct answer, 4th generation. And here's the from page 365. It tells you what the speeds are for 3rd generation, 4th generation, and 5th generation. All right, so you see 5G is up to 10 gigabits per second, as opposed to 4G being 1 gigabit per second, 100 megabytes per second to 1 gigabit per second. Because it is radio frequency. It's transmitted. The speeds can differ because there's different type of interference, natural interference in the atmosphere, right? And in the old school 3G is a lot slower, but you see how much faster, over 10 times faster 5G is over 4G. So the correct answer in this case, LTE, would be 4th generation cellular or 4G cellular. All right, on to number 4. A remote worker wants to connect his computer to his corporation's private trusted network over the internet. Which of the following would need to be configured? All right, the first possible answer, firewall. Firewall is a security device that filters traffic. That's not going to help him connect to his corporate network. Address reservation, that's for DHCP. Has nothing to do with connecting. That's just your general connection to your router or your DHCP server, which is DHCP server. Again, could be your router, could be an actual server. Most DHCP servers are built into our gateways now that we get from our cable or ISPs. But that's going to help you connect to the internet, but not connect you to your corporate private trusted network. So what you're looking for is a virtual private network tunnel or a VPN tunnel. And this is what you're looking for. So the VPN, the appliance can provide a virtual private network to remote users of the network. As shown in Figure 8-27, this allows for secure remote access for your private network. You learn how to set up a VPN in the Core 2 module, network security and troubleshooting. So page 381. So basically what you would do is use the internet, and it would be a tunnel that would cover you and secure your line through the internet to your corporation's network. So you'll have the same security that you would have sitting in your office as you would being on the VPN at home. Same access and everything, but you must have your credentials, be able to log in, and most of the time you're going to have at the very least 2-factor authentication. All right. So like I said, that's page 381, and that's the VPN tunnel. So on to number 5. Number 5, a client is requesting an internet connection type that is not affected by atmospheric conditions and is always on. Which of the following will meet these requirements? So when I talk about atmospheric conditions, if you look at cellular, that's going through the air. So rain, weather, certain things like that can affect it. Satellite, the same thing. It's just going to a line of sight satellite in lower Earth orbit. But still the same. You're going through the atmosphere. You're going through atmospheric conditions. Dial-up would not be affected because it's going to be coming from a wire and a cable. However, it's not going to be the first part or the last part is not going to be always on. It's only going to be on when you actually initiate it. So the correct answer for this would be cable, because cable is always on. You don't have to dial anything. If it's connected and stays connected. It stays on unless the link is down. All right, so the correct answer for number 5 is cable. Okay, on to question 6. A corporate user is attempting to connect to the company's Windows domain server on the local network with her new laptop through a wired connection. Which of the following is required for use to successfully sign in to Windows domain? So first, a valid connection to a DHCP server on the LAN. That is incorrect. Connecting to a DHCP server, it'll assign you an IP address, but won't allow you on the domain. All right, so you won't be able to use the access. SSID, authentication and encryption settings. If it's wireless, you can get access to the network, but you won't be able to get access to the domain. All right, so username and password supplied by the ISP. So if you're with AT&T or Spectrum, when have they given you an IP address or a username and password to connect to a domain? That's not how it works. All right, so the correct answer is Windows domain, username and password. And that can be found on page 345. So if you're in a classroom other than the Titusville lab, you have to sign into the student domain. So when you sign into the student domain, you have access to that actual domain, that Windows domain that they allow you to. If you don't sign in, you'll only see a screen that's asking you for a password and a login. So being able to do anything else relies on you being able to log in, and they give you that username and password. So remember, Windows domain, username and password. All right. So on to question 7. Henry is troubleshooting a network connection and wants to see if he can connect to the server on his network. Which Microsoft command line command should Henry use to check whether he can connect to the server? So your choices are ipconfig. So your ipconfig will give you network information, but won't tell you if you can connect to a certain point. So it won't tell you if you're connected to that server. Now, NetStat, the same thing. It can give you network statistics, but it won't tell you if you're directly connected to a certain point or a certain node on the network. Your ifconfig is the same thing as ipconfig, except for it's a Linux command, and it gives you the same information. So the correct answer for this would be ping. So here on page 358, on each computer, open a command prompt window and use ping command to test the connectivity. For example, to test connectivity to the computer with IP address 10.20.31, enter the ping and then that IP address command. Does it work? Why or why not? So basically what it'll do, it'll tell you if it's connected. It'll give it 3 or 4 attempts, and it will tell you how fast in nanoseconds the connection got there and back. All right. If it's not, it'll time out and tell you no connection was made, so you know that, hey, I have no connection to this device. You can also use a website, www.google.com, or if you know the IP address of google.com, you can use the IP address. So either way, that's how you use the ping sign or the ping command for question 7. All right. Next, we're going to question number 8. You are setting up your Windows computer to connect to the internet, and notice that when you type www.microsoft.com, the browser does not go to the site. Instead, you receive an error message saying that your address cannot be resolved. What network settings should you check to see the address of the server being used to resolve this address? So the first possible answer, gateway. The gateway is not going to tell you that. Only thing the gateway is going to do is be a bridge between you and the outside internet, your home network, and the ISP. All right, so that's not going to help you resolve that. Your IP address, same thing, is just going to give you. You can check your IP address. You can check that IP address, but it's not going to help you find out what you're looking for. Next, your subnet mask, same thing. It's going to tell you what network you're on. So the correct answer for this would be your DNS, which stands for Dynamic Name Server. So DNS servers are part of a client server system that associates fully qualified domain names such as www.cengage with the IP address. So basically what it does is gives you that URL and matches it up with its IP address, sort of like a phone book. Keeps a record of that. So if you want to look it up, the name resolution, this process is called name resolution, and it begins when a DNS client, such as a laptop or a workstation, makes a query to its DNS server. The server might turn to other DNS servers to find the IP address of a given domain name. A DNS server listens at port 53. This is on page 318. Now, so for instance, let's say you know the for whatever reason you have the IP address to Microsoft.com, www.microsoft.com, and you're able to get to that server or get to that website by using the IP address, but not by using the www.microsoft.com. That means your dynamic name server is down. The DNS is down. So what you can do, if you know your DNS server, you can ping that IP address of the DNS server. If its server is down, there's common DNS servers such as 0.0.0.0, 1.1.1.1.1, 8.8.8.8. One of those is Google. I don't remember, but there's several simple numbers like that of DNS servers that you can use if for whatever reason your DNS server is down. Back in years ago, 10, 15 years ago, there wasn't that many DNS servers, so it was a possibility. But now there's so many DNS servers to help speed up the internet. You can always find one. It's always a good idea to have one in your, that just in case that your DNS server that you're using is down, that you have a go-to as a backup. Number 9. A client contacted you to request your help in researching and supplying the hardware necessary to implement a Soho solution at his new home-based business. Which of the following Soho router features will simplify IP address configuration on the private network for both wired and wireless clients? So wireless access point, nah, that's not going to help IP addresses. Multi-port switch, still for connectivity, that will be valuable, but it won't help for IP addresses. FTP server, file transfer protocol, that has nothing to do with IP addresses. And the firewall, once again, is a security device that manages traffic and protects unwanted traffic into the network. So the correct answer would be DHCP server, and that is found on page 318. And here you have your DHCP server. When a device first connects to a network, the IP address can have already been manually assigned. This type of IP address is called a static IP address. Alternatively, the device can request an IP address from a dynamic host configuration protocol server that assigns the address from a pool of addresses it maintains. This type of IP address is called a dynamic IP address. A device that requests an IP address and other information from a DHCP server is called a DHCP client. It is said that the client is leasing an IP address. So that's what a DHCP server does, and it also listens on port 67 and receives messages on port 68. All right, and finally, number 10 of Module 7. Which of the following would use an RJ11 connector for connectivity? So it's the type of internet. So it's saying a cable. That's incorrect. It would use an F connector because it's a coax cable. Your Ethernet uses one that looks like RJ11, but it is bigger. Your cellular, of course not. There's no connection there. You're using your transmitting through the air. Your fiber does not use RJ11 either. So the correct answer is a DSL, and RJ11 is a simple old school phone cable connector in. All right. That's exactly what it is, and that's what DSL uses. Looks like a RJ45, but it's a little smaller. All right, so that is all for Module 7, Network Fundamentals. We'll follow up with Module 8 very shortly. Thank you.